Stop picturing yourself as the hero. In the first 48 hours of a systemic collapse, the heroes are usually the first ones to die. You know the archetype I'm talking about. The guy in the leather vest with the exposed biceps, swinging a katana, sprinting with an 80-litre tactical backpack that somehow never bounces. Movies have trained you to fantasize about the wrong gear. They prioritise silhouette over survival. They sell you the fantasy of the wasteland warrior because it looks good on a poster. But if you strip away the colour grading and the orchestral score, and you apply the cold, hard physics of real disaster, that cinematic loadout is a suicide note. Today, we are going to dismantle the Hollywood apocalypse inventory item by item. We are going to look at what actually keeps a human body alive when the grid goes down, the supply chain snaps, and the threat level goes vertical. Spoiler alert, the stuff that saves your life is boring, ugly, and rarely gets a close-up. I am going to walk you through 6 specific scenarios, ranging from an urban riot to a long-term wilderness evasion. In each scenario, we will watch a fictional movie survivor attempt to use standard action movie gear, and we will watch them fail. Then we will rewind and see how a realist survives using the gear that nobody talks about. If you are serious about understanding the difference between a prop and a tool, you need to lock in. This isn't entertainment, this is a recalibration of your survival instincts. If you want to be part of the group that understands the physics of survival, secure your spot now by hitting subscribe. Let's get into the first nightmare scenario. It starts in the city centre. The grid has been down for 6 hours, and the panic has shifted from confusion to violence. You are trying to move from your apartment to an extraction point 3 miles away. The streets are choked with abandoned cars, burning trash, and a crowd that is terrified and dangerous. Enter our movie survivor. He is dressed for the camera. A torn t-shirt to show off his physique, a bandana, and maybe a leather vest that looks tough but leaves his arms and midriff exposed. He looks ready for a fight. He encounters a cluster of looters, or worse, the early stage infected, depending on your apocalypse flavour. They aren't skilled martial artists, they are a frantic, clawing mass. He raises a baseball bat, ready to swing. The adrenaline is pumping, the soundtrack kicks in, and he prepares to brawl his way through the crowd like he is the main character in a beat-em-up video game. Here is what actually happens. In a chaotic grapple with 3 or 4 panicked people, you cannot keep distance. The movie survivor swings his bat. Maybe he hits one target, but the other 2 close the gap instantly. In a real riot or zombie scenario, the threat isn't a clean punch to the jaw. It is scratching, biting, and irregular debris. The jagged edge of a broken storefront window slices his exposed forearm. A desperate hand claws at his neck. If we are talking about a viral outbreak, he is infected in the first 10 seconds. If it is just a riot, he is bleeding profusely from shallow lacerations that will likely get infected by the filthy city water. His cool look offered zero protection against the friction, compression, and abrasion of a real crush event. He dies not because he couldn't fight, but because he dressed for a duel, not a disaster. Real survival armour looks like a janitor's uniform, not a gladiator's harness. In close contact scenarios, your skin is your most vulnerable asset. Human teeth, dirty fingernails, and rusted metal do not need much force to break the epidermis. The solution is boring, dense layering. We are talking about heavy denim work pants, a thick canvas jacket, or motorcycle gear with Kevlar weaving. A leather jacket is good, but zip it up. Duct tape wrapped around your forearms over a sweatshirt creates an improvised bite guard that is surprisingly effective. But the most critical piece of armour that movies ignore? Gloves. Your hands are your primary tools. In a disaster, you are climbing over glass, pushing rusted cars, and fighting off attackers. A single deep cut on your palm renders you useless. You can't hold a weapon, you can't open a can, you can't climb a fence. High dexterity work gloves, or cut-resistant tactical gloves, are worth more than any chest plate. Here is the twist that changes everything: fluid dynamics. In a biological threat scenario, it is not just about bites, it is about spatter. If you smash an infected aggressor with a blunt object, biological material goes airborne. Our movie survivor, with his bare arms and open face, is basically a sponge for pathogens. The realist is wearing clear safety glasses and an N95 mask or a wet chamag scarf. It looks uncool, it muffles your voice, it fogs up, but it keeps infected blood out of your eyes and mouth. The threat isn't just the monster in front of you, it is the microscopic particulate that the monster exhales or bleeds. If your gear doesn't account for fluids, you are already a casualty. Scenario 2. You have escaped the immediate crush of the city. You are navigating the suburbs, moving through backyards to avoid the main roads. You come to a 6-foot privacy fence that is locked. Beyond it, there is a detached garage that might have supplies. The movie survivor reaches for his weapon of choice, a pristine, razor-sharp katana he bought at the mall, or maybe a fire axe he swings with one hand. He looks at the fence. He looks at the garage door. In the movie, he kicks the door open with a single boot strike, or he uses the katana to slice through a padlock in a shower of sparks. He moves through the environment like a bulldozer, smashing and slicing obstacles with infinite stamina. Reality check. Have you ever tried to kick in a reinforced exterior door? Unless you have specific breaching training and massive body weight, you are just going to sprain your ankle. And that katana? It is a precision slicing tool designed for flesh, not hardened steel padlocks or wood. Strike a padlock with a sword and you will chip the blade, or worse, it will snap and blind you. But the biggest killer here is energy expenditure. Swinging a 10-pound fire axe or a sledgehammer repeatedly burns an incredible amount of calories. In a survival situation where you might be operating on 500 calories a day and little sleep, wasting energy on dynamic entry is fatal. The movie survivor is panting, sweating and exhausted after one door. He is loud, he is tired, and he has dulled his primary weapon on a piece of pine. The realist doesn't carry a giant sword. The realist carries a Halligan bar, a crowbar, or a simple 18-inch wrecking bar. This is the secret MVP of the apocalypse. It weighs 3 pounds. It is ugly. But it is a force multiplier. You don't kick the door, you wedge the bar and pop the latch with leverage, using physics instead of brute strength. You don't slash the fence, you pry the loose board. A crowbar opens crates, lifts heavy debris off trapped legs, and, yes, in a pinch, it is a devastating blunt force weapon that never needs sharpening and won't break. While the movie survivor is crying over his chipped katana, the realist has quietly pried open the window, looted the garage, and moved on without breaking a sweat. The rule is simple. If your weapon cannot build shelter, force entry, or dig a hole, it is dead weight. The twist here is acoustic triangulation. In a world without traffic noise, air conditioning hum, or bustling crowds, the world is terrifyingly quiet. The sound of a boot kicking a door or a heavy axe smashing wood carries for miles. If there are predatory groups, drones, or sound-sensitive creatures like in A Quiet Place, dynamic entry is a dinner bell. The pry bar allows for a slow breach. You can apply pressure gradually until the wood gives, minimising the acoustic spike. The goal isn't just to get inside, it is to get inside without announcing your location to every threat in a 3-mile radius. Scenario 3. The highways are gridlocked with dead cars. you have to walk. The destination is a safe zone 50 miles north. The movie survivor is ready. He shoulders a gigantic military surplus rucksack. It is 80 litres of storage, bulging with gear. He has a tent strapped to the bottom, a sleeping pad on top, a shotgun scabbarded on the side, and dangling mugs, ropes, and carabiners clinking with every step. He looks like a one-man army. He steps off the asphalt and into the woods to bypass a roadblock, sprinting lightly over fallen logs, ducking under branches, moving with the agility of a gymnast despite the 60 pounds on his back. Let's talk about the physics of load bearing. An 80-litre pack, fully loaded, often hits 50 or 60 pounds. Unless you are a conditioned rucker, that weight destroys your knees and lower back within 4 hours. But the real danger is centre of gravity. When you are top-heavy, moving over uneven terrain rubble, roots, mud, your balance is compromised. You slip. In a movie, the character rolls and gets up. In reality, with a 60-pound turtle shell strapped to you, you tear an ACL or twist an ankle. A mobility kill in the apocalypse is a death sentence. Furthermore, that giant bag makes you a massive target. You look like a loot box. You are slow, you are loud, and you are visibly well stocked. You cannot run from a threat, and you cannot hide in a tight space, because your silhouette is twice the size of a human. The realist chooses a grey man pack. A bland, earth-toned 30-litre backpack that looks like something a college student would wear. It contains only the essentials: water filtration, socks, poncho, lighter, knife, medical kit. Total weight, maybe 18 pounds. The philosophy is, light is fast, fast is life. You aren't carrying a month of food, you are carrying the tools to acquire food. You aren't carrying a tent, you are carrying a tarp and cordage. This streamlined profile allows you to jog if needed. It allows you to squeeze through a hole in a fence or crawl under a truck without getting snagged. Most importantly, it doesn't scream, "I have supplies." You look like another destitute refugee with a school bag, which makes you invisible to predators looking for a big score. The threat-specific twist is the snag factor regarding hostile pursuit. Whether it is zombies or raiders, if you have to flee through dense brush or a ruined building, a large pack with dangling gear is a hook waiting to catch. In the movies, the hero runs through the forest effortlessly. In reality, every loose strap, every dangling carabiner, every external pouch catches on vines, door handles, and rebar. If something grabs your pack, and that pack is strapped to your chest and waist, they have grabbed you. The realist keeps the exterior of the bag slick, no dangling cups, no loose straps. If you have to ditch the bag to survive a sprint, you have quick-release buckles. Gear is replaceable. You are not. Scenario 4. Night falls. It is raining. You are cold, wet, and shivering in a patch of woods. You need warmth to stave off hypothermia. The movie survivor finds a small cave or an overhang. He gathers some damp wood. He pulls out a survival knife and a piece of flint, or maybe he just finds 2 rocks. He strikes them together dramatically. Sparks fly. He catches a spark on a pile of leaves, blows gently, and whoosh, a roaring, smokeless bonfire erupts. He sits back, shirtless, basking in the glow, drying his clothes instantly. It looks cozy. It looks easy. Fire starting is one of the hardest skills to master, especially in damp conditions. Striking sparks onto wet leaves accomplishes absolutely nothing. The movie survivor spends 2 hours striking rocks, burning precious calories, and getting colder by the minute. His fine motor skills deteriorate as his hands go numb. He fails to get a flame. Even if he did, a large open fire consumes wood at a rate that requires constant gathering, meaning no sleep. And the smoke? Wet wood creates thick white smoke that clings to your clothes and signals your location. He ends the night exhausted, wet, and in the early stages of hypothermia, having wasted his energy on a fantasy. The realist uses the gear that movies mock, the mylar space blanket and a big lighter. Space blankets look like cheap foil wrappers. They crinkle, they look flimsy, and they aren't cool. But they work on the principle of radiant heat reflection. You don't need a roaring fire, you need to trap the heat your body is already generating. The realist doesn't try to build a bonfire. He digs a small ranger pit, uses a guaranteed fire starter, like a cotton ball soaked in petroleum jelly, which burns for minutes, not seconds, and lights a tiny smokeless fire. He then sets up the space blanket behind him to reflect the heat back into his body. This creates a microclimate oven. It requires a handful of twigs, not a log pile. It is low profile, low energy, and keeps you alive when the temperature drops. The twist is modern surveillance. In a scenario involving a tyrannical military force or high-tech alien invaders, thermal imaging is the enemy. A traditional campfire is a giant thermal flare. It lights you up on a drone's sensor screen like a Christmas tree in a dark room. Mylar space blankets, however, block infrared signatures. If you wrap yourself properly in a high-quality thermal blanket or line your shelter with it, you can actually mask your body heat from thermal optics. The gear that looks the cheapest is actually the only effective camouflage against high-tech hunters. The fire makes you a target. The foil makes you a ghost. Scenario 5. You are ambushed. A group of hostiles is blocking your path. The movie survivor whips out dual pistols or an assault rifle he found. He stands in the open, firing from the hip. He sprays bullets everywhere. He never reloads. He never clears a jam. The gunshots sound like crisp pops. He yells orders to his friends over the sound of the gunfire. He hits every target with pinpoint accuracy, dropping bad guys left and right. It is a ballet of violence. He looks powerful. He looks in control. In reality, guns are incredibly loud. Without ear protection, firing a rifle indoors or in a narrow alley will instantly rupture your eardrums or cause temporary deafness. The movie survivor is now deaf. He cannot hear the flanker coming up behind him. He cannot communicate with his team. Furthermore, stress ruins fine motor skills. Under adrenaline, you don't aim with precision, you panic fire. He burns through his limited ammunition in 6 seconds. Then, his scavenged weapon jams because he hasn't cleaned it in weeks. He stands there, deaf, holding a useless metal club, clicking the trigger on a dead chamber while the enemy closes in. Movie gunfights ignore the 3 pillars of reality: ammo scarcity, hearing damage, and mechanical failure. The realist treats a firearm as a tool of last resort, not a magic wand. He prioritises boring gadgets like a high-lumen tactical light with a strobe function to blind an enemy before shooting. Or a simple whistle. Yes, a whistle. In a chaotic situation, a codified whistle blast cuts through the noise better than a scream. For navigation, he trusts a mechanical compass and a laminated map, not a GPS unit that requires satellites which might be offline. If he has to shoot, he shoots once, from cover. He conserves ammo because he knows he might never find that specific caliber again. He picks up his brass casings if he can, not to reload, but to leave no trace. The realist understands that a gunfight is a failure of avoidance. The twist is the attractor theory. In a zombie scenario or an alien invasion, sound is often the primary hunting sense of the enemy. A gunshot creates a sonic boom that travels for miles. By firing that weapon, You might survive the immediate threat of 2 attackers, but you have just summoned 200 more from the surrounding square mile. The realist uses silent weapons whenever possible: blunt force, traps, or avoidance. The gun is the dinner bell option. Using it signifies that you have accepted you are about to be swarmed. It is the end game move, not the opening move. Scenario 6. The long haul. You have survived for 3 weeks. You are tired, malnourished, and worn down. The movie survivor is still looking cool. He has some smudge of dirt on his cheek, but his hair is perfect. He is sitting on a crate, sharpening his massive knife, looking stoic. He has no mundane supplies, just weapons and attitude. He ignores the small scrape on his leg from climbing a fence 3 days ago. He ignores the blister on his heel. He's focused on the horizon, waiting for the final battle. The movie survivor is a dead man walking. That small scrape on his leg? It is now a staph infection. Because he didn't pack basic hygiene gear or antibiotics, the infection has entered his bloodstream. He is running a fever. His reaction time is slowed. That blister on his heel has become septic, making it impossible to run. He dies, not in a glorious explosion, but shivering in a corner, killed by bacteria that we defeated in the 1940s. The movie camera never zooms in on the infected cuticle or the dysentery from drinking bad water, but those are the statistical killers of the apocalypse. The realist's pack is filled with uncool items. Extra socks to prevent trench foot. A small bottle of iodine. Blister pads. A tube of antibiotic ointment. Duct tape. Chapstick. These are the trinkets that keep the machine running. If your feet fail, you die. If your hands get infected, you die. The realist spends his downtime cleaning his gear, washing his socks in a stream, and checking his body for ticks and cuts. It is mundane. It is repetitive. It is absolute drudgery. But this maintenance is what allows him to wake up tomorrow and hike another 10 miles. The most effective survival gear usually fits in a toiletry bag, not a gun case. The ultimate twist is the mental game. The movie survivor's gear is focused on external threats, monsters, bad guys. The realist's gear includes items for internal threats, hopelessness. A deck of cards, a photo of family, a small piece of candy. Psychological degradation kills as fast as exposure. If you lose the will to keep doing the boring, painful tasks of survival, you just stop. The little comforts, the useless trinkets, are the anchor that keeps your mind from snapping under the pressure of a world that wants you dead. So, look at your own go bag. If it looks like a costume department put it together, you are preparing for a movie, not a disaster. Real survival is quiet. It is slow. It is heavy on denim, crowbars, and antibiotic ointment, and light on katanas and chrome. But here is the problem. Even if you have the perfect grey man kit, the perfect pry bar, and the perfect socks, you are still missing the one variable that gear cannot fix. We have talked about hardware, but we haven't talked about the software. What happens when the person standing in front of you isn't a zombie or a raider, but a hungry neighbour asking for help? That is the scenario that breaks more people than any horde. If you want to know the moral calculus of who gets to eat when the food runs out, you need to be here for the next briefing. Secure your spot now. You survived the simulation. Now survive the reality. Equip yourself at the official supply depot. Because if the world is going to end, you might as well look prepared.